Representing crime victims in Ohio says more needs to be done to make sure families who suffer from crime are treated fairly. And as the state of Ohio's Joe Ingles reports, this group wants voters to take action to ensure equal rights for crime victims this fall.
Advocates for crime victims brought more than 2,000 petition signatures to the Ohio Attorney General's office earlier this week. This is the first step in putting a proposed constitutional amendment on Ohio's ballot this fall that they say would ensure crime victims get rights that are equal to their offenders.
There's a very inconsistent application of victims' rights laws throughout the jurisdictions. Do a fabulous job, others do not.
Kathy Harper Lee, the executive director of the Ohio Crime Victim Justice Center, says sometimes victims suffer a second time because of the way the justice system works.
There was one particular case. It was a rape case. The case had been drug on for 3.5 years from the time that it was indicted. We represented the victim. We went in to file a motion on the victim's behalf to object to the substantial delay in prosecution, and the judge ignored the motion and actually went on to further penalize the victim. Rather than setting it for trial, the judge then continued it for 8 months. We filed a second motion, making a stronger argument that the victim has the right to be able to protect their rights. The judge penalized the victim again and set the hearing out another 10 months.
Crime Victims Services Executive Director David Voth says that case isn't unique.
There are violations of victims' rights in probably every county, every day, in some way or fashion. Either someone's not getting notified, or they're not being allowed into the courtroom, or they're not allowed to wear a memorial button when they are supposed to be allowed to, and not ordered restitution. There's just constant violations.
The crime victim advocates say this proposed constitutional amendment is meant to change that. It's called Marsy's Law, named after a California woman who was killed by her ex-boyfriend in 1983. A week after her murder, her mother and brother walked into a grocery store and saw the accused murderer, who had been released on bail. This proposal, being pushed now by her brother, would give crime victims the right to be treated with respect, fairness, and dignity. The right to information about services and rights available to crime victims. The right to notification in a timely manner of major proceedings and developments in the case or changes to the right to be present at court proceedings and provide input to a prosecutor before a plea deal is struck, the right to be heard at pleas or sentence proceedings or any process that might grant an offender's release, and the right to restitution. Another backer of this proposal, Andrea Raycamp, the co-founder of Ohio Mothers Against Drunk Driving, says it would not ensure these rights for crime victims at the expense of the offender.
Everything that we're doing does not diminish any of the offender's rights. This is just going to give the right to the victim, which is a fundamental justice principle.
Marsy's Law would not impact the rights of the accused. It would not make the victim a party to a case. The prosecutor would remain in control and handle all decision-making in the prosecution of the crime, and it would not cause unnecessary delays in the criminal process. If voters were to approve this proposal this fall, Ohio would join other states that have the same law on the books. Voters in North and South Dakota and Montana have overwhelmingly approved Marsy's Law recently. California and Illinois have it written in their constitutions. Mike Brickner with the American Civil Liberties Union of Ohio says his group will be watching this proposal to make sure it doesn't have some of the same problems that have been encountered in other states, like slowing down the legal process so accused cannot get a speedy trial or putting undue financial burdens on the state. Once the Ohio Attorney General determines at least 1,000 valid petition signatures have been submitted, the group circulating petitions can collect more than 305,000 additional signatures. And if that happens by July 5th, voters could see this proposed constitutional amendment on the ballot this fall. Reporting for the state of Ohio, I'm Joe Ingles.
A committee of lawmakers